Hello everybody, I'm Mark and this is Grace. We're back with you for the third of our 4 exercise videos we're putting together for you. And today's class is a core class, and we're going to break the exercise class over the next probably 50-60 minutes into sections that you can dip in and dip out of as you feel you want to. So you don't necessarily need to do everything that we're doing today in one go. You could do sections of each part of the session, or you could run the whole session and just cut back the amount of repetitions or the period of time that you're holding the exercises for, so you can adapt the exercise intensity to meet your own physical strength and your own capacity. And it also allows you then to build up that repetitions and the length of time that you're holding some of the static stretches over a period of time. The first section we're going to cover is the isometric exercises, and basically the secret to strengthening your core is to understand that you have to train your core differently depending on what you're trying to achieve. Now, for example, to stabilise your body takes core strength, and this is where your body stabilises through isometric contraction, and we train that differently to if we wanted to make your body receive force or accept or produce force. And strength in the core and endurance in the core is achieved by different training techniques. And what we'll hopefully do, breaking this section into these different sections, is show you some of the exercises you need to do to be able to do that. So we're going to start off with the isometric exercises, and Grace is going to get down into the plank position. Now we've got 2 plank positions. We've got a high plank, which is essentially your press-up position, and then a low plank, which your low plank position is pretty standard. What's really important that you've got a nice strong core and a straight line running through the body from your ankles through to your shoulders. And Grace's head is in this neutral position with the eye line looking down, so the spine is in a normal position. She moves up now to the high plank position. Now, when you move between that low plank, high plank position, we call that a plank transition. And it's quite important that the hip platform here stays central. So as Grace moves down, this central part of her body stays flat, so she'll be able to put a cup of tea on there and it wouldn't move. It's harder going up because you're obviously dealing with gravity, but that's still a good plank transition. So take a rest, Grace. What we're going to do is we're going to move through that now for 2 minutes, moving between the high and the low plank position. So if you start off in high plank, Grace, and I'll give you the changes.
Help you out, 'cause I'm done cleaning up your mess. Found myself in my regrets. I've become a little stronger now. You cashed in on my promises. You know I'm too never help you out, 'cause I'm done cleaning up your mess. Found myself in my regrets. I've become so strong enough.
Back up to high plank.
Open eye, feel the waves cut through me, hypnotized. Hold tight, chemicals collide. Hold tight.
So basically, you could play around with the length of time. We were doing 15-second changeovers on that exercise, but you could play around with the seconds. You could do 30 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever, and rerun that section 2 or 3 times if you wanted to, just like I said, depending on your physical capacity. So we're going to have a go at some different exercises now. So Grace is now going to get in the side plank position, and there are 2 basic positions. One where Grace is off her forearm and putting her hand on her hip. She's nice and straight, the core's tight, her hips are up, and her head's still in this neutral position. So that's position 1. Now if she was going to rotate round to the right hand side, what happens, if you notice the transition, her arm simply sweeps underneath, and then she rotates round in one fluid movement onto the other side, and she's back round ready to start. Okay, so what we're now going to do is we're going to have another go at side planks, and we'll do another 2 minutes set, but we're also going to use a different side plank position where Grace is going to put her arm in the air. So we're going to go where she stretches all the way through. So it's a little bit more difficult because she's becoming more unstable, because she's taking the segmental body weight of her arm away from the central part of the body and bringing it up over here. Okay, and the rotation round would come all the way underneath and then back round onto the other side and then hold that still. Okay, so if you get yourself ready, Grace, we'll do another 2 minutes starting with side plank. Okay, off you go.
Through the highways and on we'll go.
What does perfect even mean? Is there even such a thing? Ooh, can we switch up all the rules and imagine a utopia? Darling, I'm just so fed up with these expectations. They keep weighing me down. My heart is begging me to get the hell out of my head. I'm gonna live inside the upside down for a minute and pretend. Honey, I'm a perfect 10. Whoa, whoa. Honey, I'm a perfect 10. Whoa, whoa.
Hand on your hip.
And if I say it enough, it gets ingrained in my head, and I start to see. Honey, I'm a perfect 10.
For that time.
Honey, I'm a perfect 10. Oh, honey, I'm a perfect 10. Honey, I'm a, yeah.
So the next one, some different isometric exercises for you. Grace is now going to demonstrate what we call bird dog. So she's kneeling down on all fours, and then her opposite arm and opposite leg are going to shoot out in that position, and then When you change, obviously you move over to the other side. The second exercise, the harder exercise, is Superman. This is where you have to widen your base of support to make yourself a little bit more stable. And the same idea, opposite arm, opposite leg comes out. This is quite an advanced exercise, and it takes quite a lot of doing just to hold that. So we'll cut the seconds down on that one, but we'll have a little go at it. So we'll try for another 2-minute section. Okay, so if we go for the first rest, okay, off we go. If you look at what Grace is doing really well, she's got great extension through her leg and her arm. She's really stretching through the exercise and very stable in the core. Change sides.
My darling dear, you're never here. When I'm in pain, you hide and disappear. Like shadows in the atmosphere, charting the stratosphere. I prayed for you and kept you near in hopes you'd chase away my fears. I'm on my own.
You're going to have a go to Superman. And we're going to hold this one for 10-second changes, and we'll just do 2. Okay? So, hit the Superman position.
I believe the whole. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I give you everything. Held you close by the stormy.
Final isometric exercise I want you to have a go at. I call it half break dancers, and it's where you're in this plank, this isometric position, but you're going to cross your legs over essentially into this position. And the reason why this is an important exercise, and we're going to talk about it in a little while later on in the class, is there's a very important relationship between this shoulder and the hip, when you move. And so this cross diagonal, if you like, torque that you need to be able to be very strong through these areas across the body. This is one of the ways that you can actually help strengthen the body isometrically through this plane of movement. So essentially what Grace is going to do is get into the plank position and then cross one leg under the other, and then try and drive this hip that way down, so this hip drives down, to tighten that central part of the body up, and then literally hold that plank position in there, and then when we rotate we just simply swap the legs to the other side and then drive that top hip over the top, trying to, it's almost, to relax Grace, it's almost like if you had a towel and you were trying to wring water out of the towel. That's really what you're trying to do with that central part of your body. So we'll just do 1 minute of this with some changes to give you the idea, and then you can stop and start the video as you want and apply the period of time that you want. Okay, so in the first position, Grace. next section. Right, the next section we're going to deal with is our lower abdominals and hip flexors. So basically, even your rectus formosa is a very potent hip flexor. Psoas, ilius, all these muscles in the lower part of your abdominals. And the way that you train these is essentially by moving your legs. And so the exercises we're going to do today are flutter kicks, which Grace is going to demonstrate for us. And if you notice her hands, she puts the fingers into this shape, and we call it the kite grip, and then the thumbs go into the base of the spine to support the pelvis. So the pelvis sits on that shape. Her head's back on the floor, so her spine is all neutral. And then what she's going to do is lift the legs off the floor and flutter kick with the legs until she comes up to about this 45-degree angle, and then she's going to drop her legs towards the floor and stop, and then flutter kick back up. Now, when her legs drop down, it's the braking action where she's stopping her feet touch the floor, is where this eccentric loading essentially is how her hip flexors are going to get stronger. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to do 10 of these. So we'll do 10 rises up to this angle, and then 10 eccentric dropouts before she puts her legs down again. Okay, so off you go then, Grace. On the floor, she's having to tighten up all this central part of the body, and you'll actually see her torso start to tip slightly as the weight of her legs drop down. She's really having to work hard to keep that central part of her body stable and on the floor. That's a really good strengthening process within this exercise itself. So just do another set and watch the torso as she comes up and how she's trying to stabilise it to stop it kicking up and counterbalance. That's very good. Okay, so I would call that flutter kicks with eccentric dropout control. We can also go on to do these with single legs, where what's going to happen is Grace is going to keep one leg static and in this isometric, under isometric control with the foot off the floor. The other one goes up again to this magic sort of angle of around about 45 degrees, and then she's going to smash her leg down towards the floor and stop before it hits the floor. Okay, just have a rest a second, Grace. So I generally run this exercise with doing this both narrow, or legs together, and also legs apart. So same movement, the legs off the floor, this leg's dropping down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, onto the other side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, relax. So a set on that for me, ideally, would be 5 sets narrow, 5 sets wide, 5 repetitions on each leg. That would give me 100 single leg eccentric dropouts. So we're going to have a go at doing that then, Grace. Okay, so over to you, narrows first.
Going with the gut, never had a doubt, felt like this is just a must. Put me in perspective, I'm the deepest in the cut. Everybody tuning in, but this is just for us now. We know I ain't ballin' yet, hoes wanna holler, oh no, I don't call them back. Girl, let me see you hold it down, we gon' have a blast. Cause I just wanna know what you gonna do with all of that. Ain't gotta say a word, I know what's up. You can have it all. Watch me rip it off. I'll admit it. You got me feeling hella love. Even when it's going down, know that we gon' live it up. Young shot. Know that you the one, I can feel it in my heart, yeah. I won't stop charging, we go and come harder. I can see you and I, way beyond the stars, girl. I can never ever find the right words, and there's no way this is real life. There's no telling you're the right girl, so I can only say that it feels right. It feels right, it feels right. It feels right.
Generally, I would say in this type of workout, if you can do 2 sets of the flutter kicks with a double leg eccentric drop out, so 2 sets of 10, and then you could do 2 sets of 100, that's 50 narrow, 50 wide, that would be gold bar standard. So you'd be doing really well if you could do those. So starting off at your own level, even if you just did a couple of sets of each to start with, and over the weeks built up from there, that would be fine. So the final exercise we're going to have a go at with our for our flexors today, or what we call crossovers, or some people call them scissor kicks, is where we're going to do the same movements, but we're crossing our legs over from left to right. And we'll do this for time, and we'll try a minute today with close the legs, open the legs, and close the legs. Both legs up, together, both legs down, back into the scissor kicks, crossovers. That's it, just to finish off. Right, that's the lower abdominals. There are a lot more exercises that we can do for the lower abdominals, but you'd need the use of the gym to really perfect those exercises. And as this is aimed for students in their rooms, and you haven't got a lot of this gym equipment, obviously, we're not going to go through these on this section. Right, the third section on our core workout today is for this central part of our abdominals. I also have our obliques, and also it deals with this cross-torsional relationship between this hip and the opposite shoulder I've been talking about, and it starts to develop the body's ability to produce force through these meridians of movement almost. And my go-to exercise, the one I sort of always default back to all the time, is an exercise called alternate knee raises. And Grace is going to give us a demonstration of a few, and while she's doing it, I'll explain what Grace is doing and why she's doing it. Okay, so off you go, Grace. So this is alternate knee raises, and some important points to look at when you're trying to do this exercise is Grace's feet are on the floor all the time. So her feet aren't leaving the floor. If that happened, what would be happening is Grace's legs would be acting as a counterbalance to her torso, and she'd just be rocking on her hips. And also, if those legs are up in the air, the hip flexors are really massively under tension, and we've been doing those previously when we've been doing our flutter kicks. So we want to keep our feet on the floor. The angle that Grace is moving up to is about 35 degrees ideally, and she's really rotating her torso left and right. So when she rotates, she's looking straight down the room, she states to me she's looking right up the room. So there is a real nice rotational movement at the central part of the body. Her hands are on her head all the time. They're not leaving her head. If your hands start to come away from the head, it's because the arms are trying to gain momentum to shock your torso upwards. Now, this is quite a tough exercise to do. My default position when we're in here training our athletes is I'd like them to be able to do 2 sets of 100, probably broken into 4 sets of 50 would be my default position on this. But to start off with, you could do as little as 10 and just do 2 or 3 sets. Grace is going to demonstrate 4 sets of 25 today. But before we go into this, I just want to show you, if you've got to regress this exercise because it's just too difficult for you to do, by Grace moving her hands towards the medial line of the body, what she's actually doing is taking this segmental body weight of her arms, moving it away from the core, from this fulcrum, and she's going to make the exercise a lot easier. And she's essentially doing the same movement. Her feet are on the floor, but she's just took this weight and she's moved it down here centrally. Next thing, if you still are struggling with that exercise where you can't sit yourself up, if you get yourself some cushions or mats, just drop them so your back's on the mats to give you a little bit of an added lift. It just makes it a little bit easier when you sit up. If you find you're still struggling, you can literally get a cushion or a mat, fold that over in that position, and it'll just give you that little bit of impetus, to sit yourself up. Okay? So you've got some regression exercises there if you need them. So what we're now going to do is we're going to have a go doing 4 sets of 25 alternate knee raises. Okay, Grace, in your own time, off you go.
Murder, go crazy, berserker, I killed it. It's murder, go crazy, berserker, I killed it. It's murder, go crazy, berserker. Yeah. Show them. Yeah. Change the station with a new shit. Show them. Yeah. Change the station with a new shit. Change the station. Change the station. Change the station with a new shit. With a new shit.
Take 30 seconds rest.
Yeah.
Rest periods between sets of exercises are simply a tool in the toolbox, and they can be used really in 2 ways. The workout itself can be all about the rest period. By decreasing the rest period through the work periods, you actually train the body to be able to deal with recovery better and faster. Equally, if the important sections of the workout are the work itself, you need to make sure the body's recovered, ready to go again, so longer rest periods might be needed. Okay, Grace, off you go for the next one.
Where the ocean meets the sky.
exercises, try and get the right rest period that fits what you're trying to achieve, what you're physically capable of coping with the exercise bout and the recovery period. And think about it as a tool in a toolbox. There's not a right and a wrong period of time. There's just the right time for you on that day doing that exercise at that moment. Okay, yeah, that's set, Grace? The next exercise we're going to do in this section is called windscreens. And what Grace is going to do is put her arms flat out on the floor, stick her hands to the floor, stick her shoulders to the floor, legs come into the air, both legs go over to the one side, then back over to the other. That's a windscreen. And Grace is going to do a set of 10 for me now. If you do that, Grace. So, this exercise, windscreens, is a great exercise to do with alternate knee raises. And as you can see with all these twisting movements, what I've actually done is rotate and twist my upper torso on the previous exercise. Now I'm still rotating my lower body, and I'm producing this cross-rotational torque I'm talking about, just from a different direction. So that exercise, windscreens, as regards volume, I would potentially want to do with the alternate knee raises 3 sets of 10 of those. Okay, so what other exercises can we do for this type of strengthening process for the central part of the body I'm talking about? And a lot of you might have some of these bands in your rooms, which you can use for the next 3 exercises. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the other end of the band for Grace while she demonstrates for you. But essentially what you can do with the bands is just put them over through a door and put something through them on the door and close the door behind them, and then that will anchor them in place, would be my suggestion. And the first exercise we're going to do is an anti-rotational exercise, and the word I use to tip when I teach it is I call stick it. So what Grace is going to do is hold on to the band, make sure that the band is secured tightly to the other side, and then she's going to rotate round to the other side and just hold that position. She's going to hold that position. So it's an isometric contraction. The important thing with this exercise is 2 things. One, if Grace had a headlight or 2 lights on her hips, the headlights would always be shining forward. But she's got her upper torso rotated around, producing this torque off this shoulder and that hip as she's holding herself in place. And I'd hold this for about 20 to 30 seconds, then move round to the other side. So I go over this side, and then Grace moves round, she rotates round there. So she's going to hold this. So this is I call stick it. To think about producing force and movement within this exercise. So it's essentially the same exercise as what you've just done. The headlights on the hips are still facing forward. There's no movement at the hips, all the movement comes from the upper body. But what Grace is going to do is she's going to move quickly around to that position and then back. And then round to that position again and then back. So she's starting to produce force. She's starting to rotate, but she's hankering those hips in place, and she's going to do 10 repetitions on this side, and then I'm going to move over to the other side. This band has stayed level and parallel to the floor. On the next exercise, it's really, I call smash it. You can also do all these 3 exercises with medicine balls. The smash it exercise, I found it's very good if you can change the direction of the band to something like this, because basically what you want to happen is you want this band to come diagonally through the core. So, and then the difference between smash it is the hip is going to come through as well, and Grace is going to pivot round onto the side. So we go up to here and we go bang. And she really rotates round. It's a very dynamic movement. The angle of force is slightly changed.
Sky, we are heroes tonight. Yeah, we are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes
central section, upper abdominals, and we're going to work these with doing 2 exercises. Crunches in its basic format. Grace's knees are bent, her feet flat on the floor, her fingers are anchored onto the side of her head. They're not pulling on the back of her head, and she's got a nice constant gap between her chin and her chest. She's not closing that gap with her head as she's going through the sit-ups, and she's just lifting up a little bit. You actually only need to lift up about 10%, because all you're doing is you're contracting this upper layer of abdominals. It doesn't need to be a little, it doesn't need to be a lot. Regression exercise for that, if you're struggling or if it's making your neck ache, would be to bring your hands to your thighs, and I call this a short sit-up, where you then just push your hands up your thighs. And if you're struggling with this, you don't need to go up as high as Grace is going. You can literally just come up, just that little movement, where if you can feel these muscles activating and moving, and if in any doubt, just put your fingers here, and as Grace does a few movements, you should be able to feel that upper layer of abdominals move. And the movement with your torso coming up is only enough to contract those muscles. Okay? So Grace is going to do for you today 2 sets of 50 in her own time. So you could have a go at doing that with Grace. Equally, you could break up that 100 crunches into 10 sets of 10, 4 sets of 25, 2 sets of 50, smash out 1 set of 100. And my go-to requirement with everybody would be the fact that you've got the capacity that you could cope with doing a couple of 100 of those crunches in sets, whatever fitted and worked for you. So off you go then, Grace. So the final section this time is where we deal with our lower back muscles, and the muscles which are really the opposite side to the anterior muscles in the abdominal section. And the first exercise we're going to have a go at, and you'll have to improvise with a load or a bar or a weight, is good mornings. And what Grace is going to do is slightly bend her knees so that her legs aren't straight. She's going to take a weight and you're going to hold a weight or a bar on the rear shoulder platform, and then keeping your head in this neutral position, she's just going to then lower her torso down towards the floor, and as her torso comes back up, it's basically her lower back muscles which are lifting herself back up. And what Grace is doing very well is picking two spots. So she's focusing her head with her eye line slightly rising, and when she's looking down at the floor, she's looking at a spot directly in front of her body where her head is always in this neutral, normal, natural position. So that exercise is called Good Mornings, and volume-wise you want to be trying to look at doing something like at least 3 sets of 10 with that exercise. Shove the bar for you, Grace. The next one we're going to do for the lower back is called dorsal raises. So the first one Grace is going to do is demonstrate the dorsal raise, is where she lifts up her torso and her legs at the same time with her fingers touching the side of her head. So this is a basic dorsal raise, but it's quite a tough exercise to do, and if you need to regress this exercise to make it a little bit easier, what you can do is leave your feet on the floor and then simply put your hands onto the floor and push up a little bit with your hands to give yourself your torso a little bit of assistance. But you're trying to do most of the work yourself from your lower back. Okay, so dorsal raises, again 3 sets of 10, either with the first demonstration or the second demonstration. Then we've got a muscle that we really need to target and strengthen, your QL muscle, and we do this with QL walk. And basically, again, you need to improvise, but what you want to try and do is get a lighter weight, in this case the dumbbell, get the lighter weight into the air and have a much heavier weight, such as the kettlebell here at the moment, anchoring your body down. And what you're trying to do is keep your torso nice and erect, drive this weight into the air, and then simply walk around the room a couple of times, holding that position. And then obviously what you would need to do is then change the weights over, so you put the lighter weight into the other hand, drove it into the air, and then walk around the mats again, Grace. Okay, so that's QL walk. Yeah. So that's the end of all your core workout today. The idea behind the video is the fact that it's interactive, where you can stop and start it. You can work the correct number of repetitions and time limit on the isometric exercises that your body can cope with at the moment, and it gives you the opportunity to then build on that over the next few weeks to make yourself stronger. What is important is that you have a go at doing exercises from all of the sections, because they're all dealing with different parts of your core and different ways that your core needs to strengthen and stabilise, produce force and accept force. And to really have ultimately a very strong central part of your body, you need to be having a go at all those different types of exercises. So good luck with them, and when we get the COVID situation under control and we get back to something like more normality, if you've got any questions and you want to call down to the S&C room at the arena to see myself, James or Millie or Grace, you're more than welcome to do so at any time. Good luck.